Now, onto the clearing of the headlight lens itself. Now, the first part of the two different methods I'm going to show you is exactly the same. So again, very limited on what we need to use. In this case, a piece of sandpaper and some water. Now, the grit sandpaper I'm using in this stage may surprise you at 600 grit. Now, you may ask yourself, why not use a lower grit, 320 or maybe even 220? The answer is you could, that would be fine. However, for most people, especially who aren't experienced in sanding, the trouble with starting with that lower grit is if you're too aggressive with your pressure up front, then it becomes harder and harder. Well, not harder and harder, but it's harder to remove those lower grit scratches as you move up the chain in higher and higher grit sandpapers. From my experience, and I've sanded a ton of headlights, especially just to restore them, 600 is plenty. It won't take near as much effort as you may think, and you save 2, 3, 4 steps by not starting with 180, 220, 320, 400. You get to skip all those, and 600 will do the job just fine, as you will see. Now, as far as sanding the headlight, it's really straightforward. I have my sandpaper soaking in this little tub of water right now, just to kind of loosen it up, get it soaked in with water. After that, we're going to pull it out and we're going to start sanding this lens. Now, I just got it over a bucket here, that way I can kind of sand into the bucket, not get it all over my floor. As far as method for sanding this, you just want to go in one direction each grit sandpaper you use. Now, the reason for that is if you do a bunch of circles, well, now when you move up to the next grit and you do circles again, you're not really going to be able to see if you've removed all the previous layers sand scratches out. However, if you go in one direction the first grit and then the next, or the perpendicular the next grit, you'll quickly and easily be able to tell if there's still marks going the other way from the previous stage. So I'm going to get started right now, and like I said, this first step is the same for both methods, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the whole headlight right now. Alright, so this is what you're looking for as far as finish after the 600. Now you'll see there's a deeper scratch there. Again, I'm not using these. That can be very easily sanded out, probably with the 600 even. But this is a perfect example of where you may need to go to a higher grit, but definitely just in that spot. Never use it unless you have to. However, the rest of the surface looks great. You see this very even texture all over the headlight. So again, that didn't take very long, and you see it knocked all the yellow off with just a 600. Now, it's pretty easy to know when you've went far enough. As you start sanding, a lot of the water will be very yellow, and the closer you get to it being where it needs to be, the more white the sanding water will appear. However, always dry it off and take a look. It'll be quite evident if there's any spots that need additional sanding. Alright, from here on out, the process for both methods differ. So I've taped off this right side, or at least the intersection there. And from here over, we're going to polish and buff, and then when I unmask, I'll mask that over, and from here over we'll clear it. So, as you may see in the background, I have a little station set up. This is the most important part when you're trying to polish something with stages of sandpaper, is to always use different water. If you try to use the same water that you use with the 600 grit, when you dip your 1000 grit, for instance, in that water and go to start sanding your part, now you have 600 particles that had contaminated that water, and you just put them back on your piece. So when you're sanding it with essentially 600 grit again. So always use fresh water. I have a little station set up here. I have 1000 in its own water, 1200 in its own water, 1500 and 2000. Now, if you have the right compound and buffer, you can probably stop at 1200. However, we're just going to go ahead and go up to 1500 and 2000. It won't take that much longer, and I had it on hand. So again, always use fresh water in between each sandpaper grit. Alright, so at this point we're actually done with the sanding on both sides. This side we only needed the 600. Over here, again, to go over it, we started with 600, we went to 1000, then 1200, 1500, and lastly 2000. Now, you should be able to see a difference from this one to this one. But you should also notice this is still not crystal clear, and that's perfectly fine. So at 2000, it's not going to be perfect. The only way we're going to get it really clear is to polish it, which is our next step. So don't worry if you're doing this at home and it's not really clear. It's not going to be until the last polish step, which we'll go over now. Alright, sticking with the theme of bare necessities for the job, we have polish. And we have a microfiber cloth, not even a clean one, you know, just one I grabbed from my pile over there. Now, I wanted to stick with the theme that anybody can do this, so I'm going to hand polish with just this microfiber towel. I have a machine rotary buffer that can knock this out really quick. I also wanted to stick with a polish that anybody can get from their local store, which is Meguiar's Plastex. So, basically, I mean, put a dab on, put that elbow grease in, buff it in, and watch the magic happen in front of your eyes. Just give this a real good shake before you start. As you can see, that didn't even take very long. I did it about 3 times, I think it was, just then. So let's see what we got. Pretty good. Not bad at all. So all this, you know, with the sanding by hand and polishing by hand with this and this, you know, I feel like I have like 20, maybe 30 minutes in it. Of course, just doing half the headlight, but it really doesn't take that long, so you shouldn't be intimidated by the job. Again, I tried to show you with the bare minimum I could without having to spend a lot of money. Yeah, you could get this done with machines even faster, but if you don't have that resource available to you, it's definitely possible by hand, as I just showed you. Alright, moving on to the clearing of the lens. So you'll see here that I've now masked off the side that we polished, and here, this side, is what we'll be clear coating. For the clear coat, it really doesn't matter. I mean, they make some headlight specific ones, but it's probably all the same thing relabeled anyway. So I'm just going to use trusty old Rust-Oleum clear. It's the same stuff we used on the painted housing section in the last video. Now, for whatever reason, this can was acting up on me the first time. I actually had to strip the clear coat off, resand it to get it back to this stage. So you may see me spraying it upside down. Don't do that, but it's the only way this can will work, and I didn't have time to run out and get any more yet. So here we go. A couple of light coats, 1 or 2 heavy coats, depending on how the first one looks. Alright, the clears had a couple of hours to lay down and harden up. Did okay. Really painted in a little bit too cold of conditions, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I think it'll still get what I'm trying to across to you guys. For now, let me just show you this. The same test I did over there. So that's the polished side. This is the cleared side. So as you can see, both still have really good results. Now there are some pros and cons of both. The pros to the polishing and buffing is once it's polished and buffed, you're done. There's no wait time for the clear to cure or anything, and the clarity has the clear coat beat, because there's no type of orange peel in there at all. It's perfectly smooth, perfectly clear. Now the clear coat, as I just mentioned, will have some orange peel in it, which is going to take away some of the clarity, but the trade-off is that you actually have a layer of protection over the plastic now. So you actually gain protection, whereas the cut and buff, you're not adding protection, you're just taking away the cloudiness and the stuff that was distorting the lens. You're just taking that away. You're not adding anything. The clear coat, you're actually adding a layer of protection. So it will last longer. It just won't be as clear. I'll try to show you what I'm talking about with a close-up here. Now you may or may can't see it, but there's probably a little bit of a golf ball texture to it. That's what we call orange peel. Then when you get over here to the cut and buff side, you'll notice it doesn't have that. Just quickly sandwiched all the halves back together. Just kind of wanted to show you what the final product looked like real quick. Alright guys, so this is going to conclude our series of headlight videos where we showed you how to disassemble the headlight, how to prep the housing to be painted, and quickly how to paint it. Also how to restore the headlight lenses. I really hope you enjoyed these videos. I hope I went over everything well enough. If I forgot something, if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. I'll try to get to it and answer it as best as I can. If you enjoy these videos, it'd be a great help if you could like the video, share it with your friends, and please click that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it, guys. Thanks again, and until next time, just wing it.